As we continue to look at the Charles Dickens Christmas classic, A Christmas Story, we hear again Jesus' parable of the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16:19-26. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received your good things, and Lazarus his evil things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us, a great chasm has been fixed, so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. So he dressed in purple and in fine linen and feasted sumptuously every day. And every day at his gate lie poor Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. And even the dogs would come and lick at his sores. But the rich man never saw him. Ebenezer Scrooge and his business partner, Jacob Marley, were a lot like that rich man. So Charles Dickens wrote the beloved A Christmas Carol in 1843. He was sickened by the poverty all around him that he saw, Dickens, in London. He saw children working in factories when they were as young as 5 and 6 years old. He saw debtors' prisons in which even his own father had a stay. And he saw union workhouses that were horrible in their conditions. And he saw the very wealthy in London in particular, who had turned a blind eye to all that was around them because of their own riches, who were sumptuously oblivious. So as a devout follower of Christ, Dickens likely looked anew at this parable of the rich man and Lazarus, and as a novelist, wondered, what if Father Abraham had said yes to the rich man's pleas? There was a great chasm between Abraham, Lazarus, and the rich man who was in Hades. What if he would have allowed Lazarus to go back and tell his 5 brothers, the rich man's 5 brothers, of the torment that awaited them if they didn't change their ways? That's how Scrooge got his name, because the ways of the rich man and his brothers were to squeeze people out of all that they could in making a profit. That's where we get the name Lazarus. Remember the scene from last week where the ghost of his business partner, Jacob Marley, he appears to Scrooge after having been gone, after having been dead for 7 years, and he says this: I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Scrooge says, but you were always a good man of business, Jacob. Business! Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. That's what we struggle with in life, isn't it? What is our business? What is our ultimate calling? So Marley said to Scrooge, if you want to be saved, if you want to be redeemed, then you're going to have to be visited by 3 ghosts, 3 spirits. The spirit or the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas to come. And last week, Scrooge got a chance to see himself through the ghost of Christmas past, how his wealth had changed him from the young man that he was. This morning, we're going to look at the ghost of Christmas present and see what that does to cause this redemption. Let's pray. Lord, as we all come to this altar, to this communion table, to the Sunday during Advent, we're all a project needing to be reclaimed. Work unfinished in our lives. So as we enter into Dickens' story again, let's see where our places are so that we can come out of it with a new appreciation of the meaning of this season and your call on our lives. Amen. So the ghost of Christmas present appears, a Santa Claus-like figure, and he starts trying to help Scrooge understand what he's got to do. And Scrooge says, I'm too old. I'm beyond hope. Go and redeem some younger, more promising creature. Leave me to keep Christmas in my own way. How many of you have said that, in a sense? I'm too old. Life's moving beyond me. It's too fast. Work on the younger generation. Just leave me alone in my ways. That's what the ghost of Christmas present was going to try to do for Scrooge. Because he said to him, the child born in Bethlehem does not live in men's hearts only one day of the year. You've chosen not to seek him in your heart. I want to show you scenes, Scrooge, of men and women of goodwill at this time of the year. Touch my robe and journey with me. And that's what happened. First, he sees a scene of miners who are laboring in what was described as the bowels of the earth. And yet they were singing, and they were singing, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, with joyous voices. And then he was taken to the home of Bob Cratchit, his devoted clerk, and it's Christmas Day, and Bob is carrying in Tiny Tim after having taken the crippled boy from birth to church that day. Let's catch a scene.
"How did little Tim behave?" asked Mrs. Cratchit, when she had rallied Bob on his credulity and Bob had hugged his daughter to his heart's content. "As good as gold," said Bob, "and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see." Bob's voice was tremulous when he told them this, and trembled more when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hearty. His active little crutch was heard upon the floor, and back came Tiny Tim before another word was spoken. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his withered little hand in his as if he loved the child and wished to keep him by his side, and dreaded that he might be taken from him. "Spirit," said Scrooge, with an interest he had never felt before, "tell me if Tiny Tim will live." "I see a vacant seat," replied the ghost, "in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die." "No, no," said Scrooge. "Oh, no, kind spirit, say he will be spared." "If the shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race," returned the ghost, "will find him here. What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it, and decrease the surplus population." Scrooge hung his head to hear his own words quoted by the spirit, and was overcome with penitence and grief.
So Bob Cratchit says that Tiny Tim thinks of the strangest things. And as he's in church, he remarks that if it's a good thing that I'm here because people may be able to see me and remember that on Christmas Day who it was that made lame beggars walk and blind men see. You could see how his father was trying to keep a stiff upper lip. And Scrooge says to the ghost of Christmas present, "Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live." And the spirit says, "I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die." In other words, if there aren't some things that happen differently to change the course, his course will be an early death. So Scrooge says, "No, no, no, kind spirit, say he will be spared." And then you saw at the end, the spirit says, "If the shadows remain unaltered by the spirit, none other of my race will find him here. What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population." That was Scrooge's line that he had given earlier in the movie when people had come by to ask him for a special gift. He would say, "Aren't there enough prisons? Aren't there enough workhouses? Aren't there enough places for people to work it out on their own?" And the guys asking for the gift said, the offering that they were taking at Christmas time, people don't want to go to those places. Some would rather die than to go to those places. And Scrooge said, well, better that they just do it and decrease the surplus population. So then we see the scene unfolding a little bit more. They talk about, is the pudding still singing in the copper? That is a line by Tiny Tim. They would make pudding in a copper kettle It was plum pudding, but they were poor enough that they would have to use raisins rather than plums. And as you would boil it, the heat would go out through a nozzle, and it would cause a singing. It would cause a whistle that would take place. So that's the scene, the only other scene I want to show you this morning. So let's watch that one.
Then Bob proposed, "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us," which all the family re-echoed. "God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. Raising his glass, Bob said, "Mr. Scrooge, I'll give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast." "The founder of the feast, indeed," cried Mrs. Cratchit, reddening. "I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it." "My dear," said Bob, "the children, Christmas Day." "It should be Christmas Day, I am sure," she said, "on which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow." "My dear," said Bob's mild answer, "Christmas Day." "I'll drink his health for your sake and the day's," said Mrs. Cratchit, "not for his. Long life to him, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt." The children drank the toast after her. It was the last of their proceedings, which had no heartiness in it. Tiny Tim drank it last of all, but he didn't care twopence for it. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party, which was not dispelled for full 5 minutes. After it has passed away, they were 10 times merrier than before, from the mere relief of Scrooge the Baleful being done with.
How often have you tried to have people embrace folks that are sandpaper kind of people, that are hard to embrace? And you hear the response, "I don't need to do something with that person. That person doesn't deserve my attention and my love and my embrace." And you might say to them, "But remember who you are. Remember the season. Is this what Jesus would have us do?" And then you might hear a reluctant response, "All right, but I only do it because you've asked me to do it." There are other scenes that take place with the Ghost of Christmas present. He's with Scrooge sees his nephew Fred at a Christmas party, and they talk about him. He sees his ex-fiancée Belle at a boarding house for the poor on Christmas Day, ministering to them. And then we see this final scene where he is in bed, and over he's hearing in his head, "Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?" I want to give you another look at Christmas present through 2 of our own young men. Matthew and Aaron Curry, would you come up and... Oh, you got a mic. Good. A lot of you don't realize the strength of our youth program here at Bethel. We're doing some amazing things and witnessing them through our young people. Now, these are the T-shirts that they wore for their 30-hour famine. They went from Friday morning till Saturday afternoon with no food, and I watched them on Saturday morning, and they were in a zone, and I watched them on Friday night amongst the crowd of Ken's Christmas when we had all this array of food and all the smells of food. Matthew and Aaron are 8th graders. They're attending school in Marysville, although they live in Delaware. They are both very bright, gifted students. They were adopted as infants by their parents, David and Cheryl, who are with us this morning, from 2 separate orphanages in Russia. I want to just talk to each of them for a moment. Let's start with Matthew. Matthew is in his 2nd year of Sunshine. He plays the piano, he plays the trumpet in school, and because of his musical acumen, he also is in our crow's nest at the 11 o'clock service, and you've become one of our sound engineers, right? He takes Spanish in school. Tell us some of the things that are going on in our youth program these days.
Well, first of all, we just got finished up with the 30-hour famine, and we raised money through a program called World Vision that helps support people in different third world countries get food and sustainable food sources. And in October, we also did a crop walk, and that's in Columbus, and we also raised money for that to fight hunger in Columbus.
And you help with the angel tree?
Mm-hmm.
And did you search for gifts? Did you go out and shop? And
We did. We picked different ornaments off of the angel tree, and we went to different stores around the church.
Now you travel all the way in from Delaware. That's almost a half-hour drive, sometimes twice on a Sunday. You come on for Sunday morning, and you drive back in for youth on Sunday night. Now you're taking a long drive from Delaware to Marysville until your family can relocate. You have to get up at 6 o'clock every day. But God helps you. How does God help you get through all of that?
He kind of acts as a motivator to me. It kind of like pushes you along if you need extra help. Kind of like provides support to you if you're going through something difficult. Like kind of with time right now, he's helping us manage our time in a good way.
And with you right this moment, because this isn't anything you would necessarily choose to do, right? To testify before. Matthew tends to be more of a quiet, reserved young man, so I appreciate you coming up and sharing a little bit of who you are. Aaron is a student of language. He just blows my mind because he is learning Russian, Japanese, taking that in school, Chinese, French, and he's now become fascinated with Korean and loves to be able to, when you can, say a few words to Pastor Miran, and you've got a Korean, English Bible. How is it that you can figure out all those hieroglyphics from, the Asian languages?
Well, I guess it's just kind of in me, and like God helps me, but I pick up things really easily when it comes to like learning languages. So I can learn complicated characters really quickly, and I don't know how, but I just can.
God's given you a special gift, and I know the Lord is so important to you as he is to your brother. You tell me that you do devotions every night. How does that work?
For Christmas, my grandma gave me a book that has youth devotions in it, that before I go to bed every night, it has a Bible verse, which I go in and read on my Korean English Bible. And then it has a story and then how it relates to God and church stuff. Then it has a prayer that I do, and then I turn my light off, go to bed.
Oh, what a beautiful way to go to bed. And you too are in Sunshine, and what are they doing this year? What's the one?
Chosen.
They're doing Chosen. And you like to sing as well. And you're in the choir at school?
Yes.
My word. And you also have an interest in overseas missions and tuning into what's happening throughout the world. You like to watch CNN student news and tune in that way.
Yes.
This, my friends, is a picture of Christmas present. We need to see what's happened because we can get so busy, and even in the life of our church, can't we? That we might not see what's going on at the other end of our church building. And of course, most of us aren't here on Sunday night, so we don't get a chance to see what's taking place and the intense prayer life. How were you trying to tie your hunger that you were feeling to the mission of hunger throughout the world?
Well,
Go ahead.
it was definitely hard because I'm a person that eats a lot. But we were playing games and reading Bible verses, and so we were distracted, and it wasn't, so you weren't hungry. And we were just trying to go through and at least partially feel what it's like. But one of the things Carrie mentioned was we know that at 1 o'clock on Saturday we're going to get food. They don't know that they're going to get food. So we're trying to kind of feel that. And as we play through the games, they symbolize things that the people in Ethiopia go through.
How beautiful. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause